As many people know of or have heard of the history events that have taken place in this world, they may realize that they can be quite interesting. But many may not know the entire story of the many events that took place during those times. The tragic September 11th attacks will always be remembered as a special part of this history. I have spent many hours researching about this project, as well as asking my fellow family members who were alive during this time and asked them how everything worked and what happened when each of the attacks happened. September 11th will always be known for the various of different attacks that happened this day. Therefore, this topic is very important simply because today's society is very well impacted by the lives that were taken and the terrifying experience that affected so many lives. Today I'm going to inform you about the 3 attacks that occurred on September 11, 2001. First, the main attack that affected the world drastically, the crash into the World Trade Centers. Second, the terrorist attack to the Pentagon in Washington. And finally, the mysterious plane crashing in Pennsylvania. First, let's talk about the first main point, the attack that affected the world drastically, the attack on the World Trade Centers. September 11th attacks. History Channel states that on September 11th at 2001 at approximately 8:45 a.m., a plane crashed into the World Tower of the World Trade Center. Not even 20 minutes later, another plane crashed into what appeared to be the South Tower of the World Trade Center. The morning of September 11th, 4 airplanes filled with 20,000 gallons of jet fuel were hijacked by the terrorists, and intentionally 2 of them were crashed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. The collision causing a massive explosion, spreading debris everywhere as far as the eye could see. The Times magazine states that everything and everybody was covered in a layer of soot. The September 11th attacks. History Channel also states that the attack of these 2 buildings left about 3,000 dead or either missing, including the 157 that were on the planes when they were hijacked. The original Time magazine states that more than 40,000 people, the population of a small city, worked in the Twin Towers, and many more visited every day. As the smoke and flame, the buildings began to collapse and people ran. Everything around was destroyed. The magazine also states that David Burrell, a broker, said he saw their lives flying up in the air. He also stated that he watched people jump or fall to their death. He states that he seen a man and a woman hold hands on their way down after they jumped out the building as it was trembling down to the ground. In this original magazine, it dramatically explains so much detail that happened during the horrific attack, such as doctors, nurses, and any medical personnel and were leaving the hospitals as such nearby to help rescue, save, or perform triage to the wounded and treat the few who made it out alive. It explains how some people couldn't watch and close their eyes while other ones were in complete shock and watched and swore that it couldn't be real. As far as bringing out the sadness in the magazine, it states, while one cop intentionally caught his breath in a deli near the World Trade Center, another replied, "I saw body parts all over the place. I had to pull over my car, take a minute, and cry." Second, let's talk about the next major attack that took place on 9/11. On the same day, not long after the other 2 planes were hijacked and crashed into the World Trade Center, the third was then hijacked and crashed into the west side of the Pentagon building. According to the September 11, 2001 article, the third plane hit the Pentagon, the nation's military headquarters in Washington, D.C., shortly after 9:30. So not even quite an hour after the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center were hit, the Pentagon was hit. He also intentionally hit the plane, both filled with jet fuel, as well as both of the planes that crashed into the Twin Towers. The History Channel article states that the devastating inferno that led to the structural collapse of a portion of the giant concrete building. Also stating that there in this attack alone were 125 military personnel and civilians that were killed in that attack, including the 64 that were aboard the airliner. The Time magazine states the White House may have been the real target, but the American Flight 77 hit the Pentagon instead. Therefore, the plane had hit the Pentagon could have been targeted to the White House, but did not make it. But another assumption could be the 4th plane that crashed into the field was possibly targeted to the White House as well. Finally, the last major attack that also happened on September 11, 2001. Along the same day, with all the other horrific things that have happened on this day, was also another attack which failed and landed in the middle of a field in Pennsylvania. The History Channel article states that the 4th and final plane was hijacked about 40 minutes after leaving the international airport. But after the plane was hijacked, and because that flight was delayed because of the 3 planes being hijacked before, the passengers on the plane were trying to figure out about the attacks, and in New York, the attack that crashed into the Pentagon via cell phone. Therefore, the passengers told their loved ones pretty much that they were going to die and that they loved them. The passengers fought the 4 hijackers on the plane and were suspected to have attacked the cockpit with a fire extinguisher. The plane then flipped over and sped towards the ground at approximately 500 miles per hour, crashing into a field in Shanksville in West Pennsylvania. The same History Channel article states that 44 passengers were aboard and were killed. The intended target for this hijack was not known, but the theories based off of the other crashings believe that it could have been intended to go to the White House, the U.S. Capitol, the Camp David President Retreat in Maryland, or possibly one of the several power plants along the eastern seaboard. In conclusion, this day for many was very shocking as well as it was horrifying. 4 planes hijacked and crashed into 3 different buildings, both Twin Towers, the Pentagon, filled with so many people. September 11, 2001 is remembered for the many lives that were taken, and some too soon, and so expectedly, such as people in the building, such as paramedics, cops, and firefighters. All of these lives are remembered every year to an extreme. This day will forever be remembered and impacted as it impacted the United States tremendously.